What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Roman's Creative Academy. As always, I'm Jay.
And I'm Mike.
And this week we have another special guest for you guys. And what we will be talking about is how she got paid to buy a rental. Keep watching to watch the interview. What's up, Bere? How you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. We're so happy to have you on today. We get to talk about all the amazing things that you've been doing, and we're so excited to dive into them, right?
Absolutely. So for everybody who doesn't know, Bere is one of our students, but she was doing her thing way before she met us. So Bere, you just tell us a little bit about yourself, tell everybody where you're from, what you got going on.
So I'm from San Diego, California. With real estate, honestly, I just thought about it last year. Probably September. I don't know. I would say probably September. Got the idea about like looking into it and got serious about it. And then I started talking to a realtor in December, closed on my first property in Indiana in January. And then in January, I was also thinking about like, how do I get number two? Like, I'm already ready for the next one. So I was thinking about the best way to go about that. And I saw creative finance and I was intrigued because I was like, okay, that seems like a different way to kind of do things versus going through a bank. That's what I did with the first one. I did a commercial loan. So I was thinking like, how can I get more properties without having to go through the traditional bank route? So I saw Mike and Jay, and then I was like, okay, they seem to know what they're doing. Let me talk to them, and maybe I can learn how to do this creative finance thing too.
Awesome. Right now, Bere, like, how does your life look, say 3 years ago, and then how does it look today? Like, tell everybody, like, you know, because if for everybody who doesn't know, we know Bere very well. She is all about the hustle and making things happen and sacrificing now for the long term. So kind of tell everybody, where did your
And I want to add to that, Bere knows to trust the process, right? And that has gotten her to where she is today. So we'll let her speak on what that looked like before for her and what it looks like now.
So before I was just working, regular full-time W-2, just kind of like the way that we're all taught to do. But I knew that I wanted more for myself and my family. So now that I have my second property, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, I guess you can say. I still obviously work like a part-time W-2, but now I'm able to concentrate more on real estate because I see the potential that it does have. To just like completely change, my day-to-day life and just my long-term goals so that I don't have to work at a W-2, even part-time, full-time, or anything like that. Um, I just feel like I have a lot more freedom now, and I'm able to just focus on the things that are actually going to make me money. So, which is real estate. And obviously, I still have my W-2, like I said, because you got to pay, your bills anyways. But on this journey, I know that at the end of the day, it's going to be worth it working and doing real estate, working on the weekends, working extra hours, waking up at 5 a.m. every day, ending the day at 7 p.m. Like it's temporary, but it's going to be hard work, and it is. But it's also going to be worth it at the end of the day.
remember, like for everybody listening to, we always tell Bede, we tell ourselves, we tell everybody, hustling is a season, it's not a
Mhm.
lifestyle. So right now, it may not be a spring season, it may be a season for a year or two, but at the end of it, it's all going to come together. So Bede, I guess tell in terms of like creative financing and real estate, what when you first got started, how did you we all know that California has a crazy market, right? Everything is priced out of water. It's not really investor friendly. How did you fall upon Indiana? And then talk a little bit about that first real estate deal and what you learned from it, as well as why you decided it would be better to potentially go a different route moving forward.
So, like you said, California is bananas. Rents, mortgages, everything's super high priced here. So I knew I wanted to go for a landlord friendly state also. And then obviously one that the houses are just lower price, because I knew I had to get qualified to buy it with a bank loan. So I actually was a part of another community that kind of had other investors, and they were talking about Indiana, especially Evansville. So when I found out about Evansville, I found out that there's houses there for like $50,000. I was like, okay, here we go. This is for me. So shout out to Jana because she's the one that told me about that market, and
This credit
that's how I
card
got
hacker.
into it. Yes, her, exactly. So yeah, so I reached out to her team, so she got me in touch with them. Super easy process. But again, they look at your income, they look at, your debt to income, all that stuff. So it did take a little bit longer, but it wasn't difficult. But also the reason why I did transition into non-traditional, which would be creative finance, was because I knew I didn't want to stay on my W-2 forever. And if I went down the traditional route, I had to stay there or pivot to another job that's also making me the same amount of money or more. And I knew that that's not what I wanted. So I was like, how can I buy properties without having to be at a W-2 and show my income and show those pay stubs and be there for 2 years and do all that? And creative finance was that answer for me.
Curious. I don't think we've ever asked you this, but how did you come across creative financing or even the thought of it? Is it like you just Googled it, or I'm actually curious.
I think it was Instagram, honestly. I started following a bunch of like real estate pages, people who are in real estate. Somehow I ended up on yours. I don't know the actual like trail, but I did, and I was watching like your guys' videos and stuff like that. I was like, okay, let me reach out to him. Doesn't hurt to have a conversation and kind of see what they offer, because I also knew that creative finance, I did not understand it at all. So I was like, I would need somebody to hold my hand through that process and explain it to me, which is what you guys have done for me.
It's funny because I remember that my first thought when I was like, okay, we want to scale this, right? Because we too didn't want to be in a W-2 for forever, right? And we bought our first house, and maybe a lot of our viewers know this story already, but I'm going to say it again for those who don't, is we bought our first house and we were like, how the hell, excuse my French, are we going to scale this quickly? Like, we just saved up for years and then that was our down payment. Now we got to do it all over again? Like, no, there has to be another way. And that's literally how we came upon creative financing, and we just ran with it. So it's funny to think that when you have a problem, you look for a solution and you find
Mhm.
it, and that's the next step for you, right? And you stumble upon it. So that's really cool. The similarities in the story there. Um, but I want to actually dive right into what everyone is dying to hear about, and it's the fact that you got paid to buy a rental. So for everyone watching, that is the main topic for this video, and I'm super excited for you to tell us a little bit more about that. So tell us, where did you find this deal?
So this deal actually was from an ad that I posted on Facebook, the one that says, anybody have a home that's not market ready? I'm looking to buy one in 2 weeks. So it's actually a realtor. A realtor messaged me on there. I was talking to her and she told me, hey, I have this client or potential client, who has this house, and she's like, she's looking to sell it. I'm interested to find out about what you do. So I got on a phone call with her, kind of talked to her, asked her a couple questions. She told me actually that she didn't have a contract with the seller, so she just actually had a consultation with her. So she said, "Here's some pictures." She didn't give me the address. She just gave me a picture of the side of the house or the front of the house, and she kind of told me just what the seller was looking for, and she was telling me like, "I don't think it's worth that much, X, Y, and Z." So I told her, I said, well, I would like to, speak to the seller. If, I can give you a referral fee as well. And it kind of ended there. I never heard back from her. So what we ended up doing was reverse image searching on Google, the picture that the realtor sent me. I knew that it was in Princeton, Indiana, and I just put that information in there. Google popped up the house, found the address off of Google, and then from the address, I was able to find the seller's name, using PropStream. And then from there, I was able to find, it didn't actually have her phone number on True People Search. So I ended up going on Facebook, searching her name. And then from there, we were able to confirm it was her. And then I actually sent her a message on Facebook. And I just introduced myself and I said, hey, I heard that you're looking to sell your house. This is what I can do for you. When do you have time to get on a phone call? And we got on a phone call. She shut me down at the beginning. And with my follow up, eventually she agreed. So that's how I got my first property.
Savage.
So that was a lot right there. So I want to back up a little because I was actually not a part of this process, this rabbit hole that you and Mike went through. So I got to hear it secondhand. And Mike came to me, he's like, "Oh my God, you can't believe what me and Bere just did together." I was like, what'd you do?" He's like, "Well, I kind of went down a rabbit hole with her and I knew she was like, this was a deal with her and I helped her get through it." And I was like, "Wait, what? You did what?" And he's like, "Yeah, so we went here, and did this and that, the other." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, look at you guys go," right?
That was all Bede. Like
Yeah.
she went out, headhunted, found all the info, reached out to the seller. That was crazy. And then on top of that, what was really awesome that Bede decided to potentially leave out, but I'm going to bring it in anyway, is that the seller had a very hard time speaking English. She was, was she from South America or was she Hispanic? Or
Hispanic. I don't know
yeah,
exactly where she's from.
so she's Hispanic and she only really spoke Spanish. So Bede not only had to negotiate the deal for the first time around, and we couldn't help her, right? But
I mean, I could, but I wasn't around.
she
So
had to translate into Spanish all the terms, and it was crazy to see that transition and how you did it. But talk about the timeline from the first time you contacted her to how long it took of follow up to
Mm.
actually get there. Once you got there, what did those terms look like?
I think from the first time I contacted her, like I said, she shut me down. I think I actually got on the phone with her maybe a month after that. And then maybe, I'm gonna say maybe 3 weeks after that, she actually reached out to me because she wanted to sell it on her own. She didn't want to use a realtor. So I already had given her my offer the month prior to that. And I actually was gonna follow up with her in a month, but she came to me, I think 3.5 weeks. So it would have been a month anyways. But yeah, she said like, I think she was just like, hey, so what was your offer again? And I was like, boom, phone call, like let's go. So I presented it to her again. She said, okay, let's do it. And yes, it was in Spanish. Yes, it was hard. I know Spanish. I speak Spanish, but Spanish creative finance is a whole nother language. Like trying to translate the vocab where I'm barely learning it in English to Spanish, that was a process in itself
Savage.
for
I'll
sure.
I'll attest to that one too, because people ask me all the time, like, "Can you translate this?" I'm like, hold on. No."
That's where the Spanglish comes in for sure. So we got through it. I would even ask my mom, like, Mom, how do you say this? She'd be like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, what do I mean? What do you mean? Tell me how to say this. So I had some inside help with the Spanish translation for my mom. But I had to do it myself, right? I couldn't be like, hey, talk to my mom. That'd be weird. But yeah, so the term was 130 purchase price, with 7,000 down because she did need some money to move. She had some things that she wanted to pay. And then with a 12-year balloon.
And question for you is, I know when you were looking at this deal up front, you were like, I could wholesale it, make a quick fee, but this is close to my other rental. And I know that your main goal has always been to build a portfolio. So I guess what when we got to that point, or when you got to that point of making that decision, right? Of you're like, I think I want to keep this thing. But there was a question that I know that you asked us, and you were like, guys, what are we going to do? Because right now, between money down, some renovations, there's light things.
Mhm.
It's going to cost a lot out of pocket. How did you fund the deal? And what did that funding structure look like? Because I think a lot of people have the misconception that even with creative financing, you'll always need some sort of money down, whether it's closing costs or maybe it is a little bit to the seller, right? But for people who are just getting started, they feel that that's a deterrent and then they have to assign the deal or they have to walk away. So how did you pivot and what did that funding source look like in terms of structure?
So I was part of those people who thought that too. I thought that if I don't have the money, then I can't buy it. I can't keep it. Which I've come to learn, which is not true. People want to give you money. So it's a fact. So what I did was I looked for a private money lender. Um, there's a community here local that I'm a part of, and I figured let me put out the deal, see if anybody's interested. I posted it. I think the next day or the same day, I had somebody reach out to me and say, "Hey, I'm interested about the deal. Can we talk about it?" Jumped on the call the next day, explained to her what the deal was, what her return would be, and she's like, "I'm in." I said, I'm like, "Are you sure?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm in." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Like it was that easy, honestly. Like she didn't know me, I didn't know her. We were just part of the same group. And the numbers make sense to her. So she was interested in doing it. She wanted to learn about creative finance as well. So that was something that I offered to kind of explain to her, um, kind of how I do it and how we do it. And that was it. So she agreed to um, be my lender and give me the money to purchase the home.
Now, this is pretty cool. So, in terms of Bere, her first creative finance deal, not only did she buy with creative finance, she, on top of that, got a private money loan. But what's really cool is on the day of closing, did tell us what that cash situation looked like, and did you have an influx or an outflux of cash on the day of closing, and why?
So I actually got money into my account, um, because of the private money lender, which she gave me was X amount, and then I was able to pay closing costs and the down payment. So then I was able to use the funds that were left over to do the renovations for the home, which is usually some people's concern too. Is like, how am I going to fix up the house? I don't have money. Well, there's your money too. So I calculated that, and then obviously for reserves. So I actually got money on the day of closing into my account.
That's awesome. And a last question about this deal, right? What are you planning on doing with this deal once everything is completed? And what is the reason you used this strategy with private money and creative?
So with this property, I'm doing rent to own. Um, and that is the plan to pay back the private money lender, as well as getting that non-refundable option deposit up front from the tenant buyer, using that money to pay her back. And then I'm just going to be collecting the cash flow until whatever point the tenant buyer buys me out. And then I'll get that back in check as well, without having to deal with any responsibilities of fixing the house like a typical landlord would. And then obviously helping somebody go from a renter to a homeowner.
And what's your projected cash flow amount?
I believe it's 250 to 300.
Sweet.
And then, yeah, if they're able to pay a little bit more, then obviously it would be more than that.
Yep. And what's cool is when you think about a deal like this, right? And this is for everybody. If Bere were to go and rent this out long term with a normal tenant after reserves and all of the percentages, there'd probably be nothing left on the bones for it to make sense. But because the deal was a little tighter and there was some money needed up front, the rent to own strategy is going to help get all that cash
Mhm.
back, plus increase your cash flow by getting high market rents and no reserves, which is basically what is the key to this deal. Now, but everybody knows that just by this small clip here that you're an action taker, you're a hustler. You don't take no for an answer because you chase this lady down.
You really don't.
What advice do you have for people listening if they wanted to get started in creative financing or real estate investing in general?
well, especially with creative finance, hire coaches. Like I would not have known what to do, and I probably wouldn't have had the courage to even do it if I didn't have you guys like explaining it to me and then just having my back. Because creative finance is a whole beast in itself, and it's so weird. Like you think about it, like it's not normal. Like it's not normal. So having somebody to teach you and, like guide you through it would be my best advice, especially like if you're new like me. Like I still consider myself new. I mean, I just got my first one in January. It hasn't even been a whole year. So yeah, get somebody who knows what they're doing, get somebody who has the experience, and it's an investment. Like if you're looking to get into real estate, it's because you want to be an investor, and hiring coaches is another form of investing. So if you're going to put your money into real estate, put your money into coaching because it's going to 10x it, your return.
Well, Bere, you know that you're part of our family. You always will be. We love you. Um,
Thank you for sharing with everyone your experiences and those little tips there. I will say that that is what catapulted myself and Mike is just always, being able to put out so that we get in and avoid those problems, right? That we don't really have the risk to take, right? Because a lot of people think, oh, I'm putting out 5, 10, 15 grand for a coach. But at the same time, you're saving thousands by doing that.
Now, Bere, if somebody wanted to reach out to you or follow your journey, they, how can they follow you? How can they reach out? How can they talk with you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, beta.p_. So you guys can find me there. You guys can send me a message.
Awesome. And we'll drop that in the show notes and in the link below.
Yep.
And again, guys, thank you for always following along and watching. Bere is a superstar. She is an outlier than most people, right? A lot of people give up. Bere is persistent. She doesn't stop, and that's why she has been so successful. So it always reverts back to the amount of effort you put in is what's going to come out.
Mhm.
So
Thank
thank
thank you again. If anyone has any questions, please drop them in the comments and we will be happy to answer them. Any final comments?
That's it. Just always remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video.
See you
Thanks,
guys.
guys.